What does a pinball whiz named Brian Eddy, a video game about shooting guns and using psychic powers called PsyOps, and a successful Chinese action director named John Woo have in common? A tequila slammer. A video game that does justice to not only epic slow-motion action scenes popularized from The Matrix or even Max Payne, but for how to correctly make a movie sequel for the video game audience and market, which brought people into a whole new world of epic set pieces and iconic, blistering, adrenaline-filled action. This is a development, story analysis, and combat enjoyer video about a video game. That video game is Stranglehold. It all started with a movie, a badass action thriller. John Woo, the director of Hard Boiled, wanted to create a film that did not focus solely on the lives of gangsters, but on the police instead. In an interview with John Woo, he said he wanted to make his own Hong Kong-style Dirty Harry detective film. So, Hard Boiled was made with the leading actor Chow Yun-fat to be set as a police inspector named Tequila, who loves drinking and playing the clarinet. The film was released in 1992 and became a significant success in China. It grossed about $2 million in United States currency. Thus, it cemented John Woo as a successful film director and a safe investment for studios to fund. John Woo continued to create flicks until 2003, when an opportunity arose. Before we continue, a few other pieces need to be set up on the board, one of which is Brian Eddy. In an interview by Piotr Bajda, they discussed Brian Eddy's life. He started making video games at 12, on the Commodore VIC-20. But his career began when he was 21, when he saw an ad in a Chicago newspaper that read, "Games, games, games." So he decided to take the gamble, which proved successful, and landed a job at a pinball powerhouse, Williams, now operating as WMS Industries. Then, Midway Games acquired this company at the time. This piece will be important information later. So, Eddy worked in pinball all through the 90s and became quite successful. But sadly, by 1999, the pinball industry had collapsed. Hence, the Williams company collapsed and transferred Eddy to Midway Games, which was already doing well from the success of Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam. Now, while at Midway, Eddy made a few arcade video games, like Arctic Thunder, which is a snowmobile racing game. But Eddy's career was going to be shifted again, because Midway had their sights on a different market, full-time creating video games exclusively for the console market. So Brian Eddy was shifted to be the director on PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy, a video game in which you're an agent with psychic powers and take down enemies through those powers, shooting a vast number of weapons and using other tactics like stealth to gain the upper hand. Now, PsyOps was released on June 14th, 2004, in North America, and while it was praised by critics and audiences alike, the game did not meet sales expectations, and fell short. So, Midway canned the sequel and looked towards ideas of making video games with pre-existing licenses. Now, this is where it all led up to, and it all happened because one simple person from the marketing team at Midway had a connection that led to the acclaimed movie maker, John Woo. So the conversation started, leading to possible collaborations, which led to a deal where Midway would make a video game sequel to the 1992 film Hard Boiled. Most of the development team from PsyOps moved over to work on Stranglehold when creating visions of how the gameplay would work. They used the PsyOps engine, which helped illustrate the movement and action they wanted to do and improve on. Now, while creating the game, they wanted the gameplay to be like the films, and when they showed John Woo, who enjoyed the style but did not know much about video games, he let the studio have full reign over it. However, when it did come to the story, he asked them to pull back on ideas like the plotline of exporting illegal body parts. The team started to create a product with two priorities. As writer and interviewer Bajda stated, making the movement in the game as smooth and responsive as possible, and to create a largely destructible environment. I believe the development team did this, and it is what makes the gameplay feel enjoyable and fun to control. Eventually, through some ups and downs, Stranglehold was released in 2007. When the game was released, a special edition was released on PlayStation 3 on August 20th, 2007. For only $70 at the time, you can get the game and the film Hard Boiled on one disc because PlayStation used the Blu-ray format. It is a fun edition, but I have not decided to grab it since I play the game on GOG for only $10. Now it's time to get hard and explore the beauty of the gameplay. Stranglehold, like any other good third-person shooter, is about shooting enemies, but instead of being behind cover, you are jumping, running up banisters, and swinging across chandeliers to fight the enemy. To immerse the player in the world and feel like you are in a sequel to Hard Boiled, the Midway team, quote, dissected his movies along with a plethora of other action cappers to come out of Asia. The team emerged from that viewing marathon with two priorities: making the movement in the game as smooth and responsive as possible, and create a largely destructible environment. Now, the gameplay loop is simple. You take corridors to go into set areas ranging from mini sizes, and you must wipe out enemies with various weaponry. Now, the game takes place in many settings, from a city market with alleyways, an old shanty town with ships, a museum, a penthouse, and an old school bar. All these places have destructible environments that can aid you in combat. You can shoot down scaffolding or even signs to knock out the competition. Another part you can do is use the environment for movement. As I mentioned earlier, you can run across stair banisters or even jump onto a cart and wheel across to fire at opponents. Now, while doing all this, walls will break apart. Random pots and pans will start flying, and enemies will crumble to the fast movements and ultimate firepower, with some added slow motion. The excessive action-packed levels are very reminiscent of Hard Boiled, The Killers, The Raid, and The Matrix. Some video games that I would count as similar would be Max Payne 3, Fear, Vanquish, and even something like My Friend Pedro. These are all very stylized video games with well-crafted gameplay that makes you feel like you are in the 80s and 90s. Now, minus sliding and jumping around like a maniac, the game also has slow motion, and I mean a lot of slow motion. John Woo enjoys using slow motion in his films, especially the iconic dove shot. While cheesy, it works well and gives the film and the game a look that most mediums do not have. You can activate slow motion in the game at any moment, but I intended not to use that mechanic as much. Slow motion tends to activate if you dive or jump onto something so you can shoot enemies. The developers call this technique tequila time. It tends to give gamers a pause for a quick second while helping them feel like an epic action star. The game also has 4 special moves you can use in a pinch, or to change the tides of combat in your favor. Now, to gain these abilities, you must fight enemies normally, or with style by using the environment to your advantage. Now, the first piece you will unlock is health. This mechanic is basic as anything, but if you need health and are about to die, you will use this skill to continue the fight. The second ability is a slow-motion one-shot bullet that can take someone out from far away or decrease some health from an enemy boss. The third ability is Bullet Barrage. It starts with you loading in Dragon Breath or other high-caliber ammo into your guns and then becoming invincible while destroying everything for a few moments. It is suitable for crowd control and to feel like an unstoppable killing machine. The last ability is the Token Move. You activate it, everything slows down, doves start flying, and the game decides to pick all the enemies off, one by one, in a montage. It is the most stylized of the moves, and I love it. Boss fights are not adaptive, and neither are the AI or controls. Though I was playing on a keyboard and mouse, and not a controller. I don't know if the Xbox 360 or PS3 controls are more adaptive. The controls on a keyboard and mouse don't have an entire 360-degree movement, and the game picks and chooses what the player may run up on or jump to. It can be frustrating, but once you get past some of the control issues and funny AI, the game is still an enjoyable ride. Now, when the game was being developed, they called the feature in the game Massive D. As Brian Eddy said in an interview, Massive D is, quote, a feature that describes the fact that almost everything in the world that you can imagine could be broken, destroyed, smashed, or blown up actually can be. Now, it is an odd name, though I thought it was cool that they used the Havoc engine on Psyops and changed it around to have destructible and great combat environments for Stranglehold. It is impressive what people can create, but like I said before, without controls feeling fluid, you may frustrate the player at times, while it certainly did for me. In a review written by Chris Kohler on January 26, 2007, he wrote about how the level design in the Stranglehold demo holds the game back at some points. He states, "Go into a room and kill a whole mess of dudes. What they showed off seemed packed so thickly with guns, blaze, and action that there didn't really seem to be any room for strategy or pacing." Some people may not agree, but gameplay is always essential for any core video game. While I love the gameplay, I can see someone coming to this impression. While I tend to enjoy the experience, I think it's essential to pay attention to all points and details for a critical review. Overall, the gameplay is fun to waste a few hours in, and it's not a hard piece to come back to and play. The rain-soaked streets of Hong Kong glimmer under flickering neon lights. It is a city where shadows dance in the corners, and secrets linger like the haze of smoke in a dimly lit bar. I lean back against the cooled steel of the railing, a cigarette dangling from my lips as the hum of the city pulses around me. In this sprawling metropolis, the line between right and wrong blurs like the fog rolling off Victoria Harbor. The glitzy skyline masks a deeper darkness, where corruption and ambition intertwine, and the whispers of the past echo in the alleys. Each face I pass, I see a story, a longing, or a betrayal, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Across the border, China looms large, a land of tradition and modernity battling for dominance. The ancient temples stand as silent witnesses to the march of time, while the relentless drive for progress reshapes the landscape. Here, power plays and political intrigue are as common as the thick smog that blankets the cities. Every case I take leads me deeper into the labyrinth of intrigue. Government spies, business tycoons with hidden agendas, and the ghost of history that refused to fade. I'm drawn into the underbelly of Hong Kong and the mainland, where alliances shift like tides, and trust as fleeting as a shadow in the night. As I light another cigarette, the rain begins to fall again, washing away the facade. In this city, everyone has something to hide. And I, a detective on a relentless quest for truth, am just getting started. One case at a time. Our story starts with a kidnapping from a mafia gang and a murder of an innocent cop. One group making demands to Lee, the police chief. Here, we are introduced to the titular character, Inspector Tequila Yun, who decides to go to Kulun Market alone to save the officer. Though, when he finds evidence of the cop being dead, he is ambushed and starts a shootout. This leads him to a tea house. Here, John Woo, the director and creator of Hard Boiled and other such classics, cameos as the bartender. Tequila orders his iconic tequila slammer as he listens to a business deal between two rival gangs, Golden King and the Imperial Nines, or I-9s for short. Though one group believes the other brought a cop to the deal, another shootout occurs. Tequila survives and follows the tip he learned, which is the I-9s killed the cop, and is working under a group called Dragon Claw. So, Tequila heads to Dio to investigate further. After some excellent communication tactics, Tequila tracks down Dragon Claw's leader, Jimmy Wong, and they have a talk.
You are big enough to have a street address.
The name is Da Pong. Sit.
We got bad history. I know.
Then why you are trying to kill me?
If I wanted you dead, you already would be. Today,
And so the story takes the player to many other locations and other people and unravels the story. It's not a complicated one. I mean, everybody basically turns on each other for themselves, minus Tequila, who's trying to save his daughter and the woman he loved in the past and still does. The story has betrayal, despair, and epic action set pieces. It is honestly a very simple plot to move the game along, which I do not mind. You never need a very complex story for an action film or a video game. The audience is just along for the ride. It is a well-presented story with fantastic voice acting from John Woo himself to Chow Yun-fat. A game of pure talent and history. An ambitious title. They used a top-of-the-line engine with a well-executed story, fantastic gunplay, and well motion capture and voice acting. Stranglehold is a worthy sequel in John Woo's universe for Inspector Tequila. So, what did I learn from playing and researching all about this game? Well, I'll bring it all the way back to an article I have used countless times, called Woohoo, The Making of Stranglehold. The writer, Piotr, asked Brian Eddy, out of all his careers, which one did he prefer? His answer was this: I like all types of games. Pinball, video, board games. It doesn't matter to me, he says. I just love games. And for the quote alone, I just want to say, I love video games as well. I'm Liam McGahan. Thanks for watching.